Hey guys, Chris here. Tonight we have a story from a park ranger who's working in Glacier National Park. And something happened while he was on patrol there that was so frightening to him that he transferred to another national park because of it. That's next. Okay, you guys, I am in the Sierra Nevada tonight. We just had some rain pass through, had some thunder as well. I got some beautiful towering mountains over here, and Carson Pass is that way, but I think the rain has passed. I was just about ready to bag it and get out of here, but we can get the story going here. And we have from the Belching Beaver, what a name that is, brewing company, we have Must Be the Honey Blonde Ale. Check that out. And that is ale brewed with honey, obviously. And it says damn good times. Need I say more? Our smooth drinking honey blonde ale is one of our best sellers, and for good reason. We brew it with the finest quality honey available. Flora aromas leap from the glass while subtly sweet flavors linger on the finish, making this beer for all occasions, including stories, Bigfoot camping stories. Good times to you, my friend, and welcome to the Beaver family. Cheers, BB. Again, which is the Belching Beaver. I like the name. He's even got a bee suit on. The beaver does. That's pretty impressive. Smart beaver, by the way. This is a 5.5 ABV on this, and they are out of Oceanside, California. And ooh, I already smell some honey there. That's great. Got some water in there. All right, here we go. Oh, looks like apple juice almost, doesn't it? That looks really good. All right, taking it right out of the can. Wow, got a really sparkling water kind of carbonation to it almost. Not really very bitter at all. The honey is definitely not overpowering. It's subtle, but you can definitely taste some honey to it. It's definitely blonde, and it's an ale. That really tastes good. I like that. Belching Beaver, Must Be the Honey. Cheers. So our story takes place in northwest Montana, Glacier National Park. Beautiful northern Rocky Mountain National Park, just below the Canadian Rockies, north of the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Established in 1910, over 1 million acres of wildlands, with the going to the Sun Highway going up over the top, over the Continental Divide. And this is where Stephen was a park ranger, had been working there for 15 years. This particular year, 2001, he was in the Many Glacier region. Beautiful historic hotel, visitor center, shops, stores, the lakes, and this trail went up this U-shaped glacial valley, very carved out. That's why they call it glacier. And these glaciers would come together on either side of a mountain and just carve out these sharp spires and points. And horns is what they called them, as well as aretas. And aretes were these walls that had glaciers on either side. And a long time ago, these glaciers would just squeeze this country and just form these walls and these horns, making this very dramatic landscape. This particular trail that left from Many Glacier would go up, and then would go to the left to Iceberg Lake, very popular area, and then to the right it would go to this ptarmigan wall, very steep, and it would have these switchbacks going up to this wall. And it got to the base of this wall, which you could not go over, but in the 1930s, they built a tunnel going through the base of this wall. Took them 3 months, two jackhammers on either side, going straight in and meeting in the middle. This was the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, and they built this tunnel 250 feet long. And it was meant for horseback riders and hikers to go through and then come out the other side and work their way down to the next valley, which was the Belly River drainage. Very dramatic, steep switchbacks, and in fact, on either side of the doors, the entrances kind of opened up, and there was these retaining walls that they built for safety, and they weren't very tall walls. These were built in the 1930s. And in fact, 1998, a woman from Montana was horseback riding with a group. Her horse got spooked, tragically flipped her off onto the wall, and then the horse landed on top of her, and they both tumbled 1,400 feet to their death. Very tragic, and it just shows how dangerous it can be up there in these very steep switchbacks that go along this wall in Glacier National Park below this ptarmigan tunnel and the ptarmigan wall. And the ptarmigan is a game bird, kind of like a grouse. So Stephen's part of his job was to go in the fall and go up this trail and close these big metal doors that they put on the tunnel in 1975. These big, heavy-duty doors. You had to push them and then close the doors to keep the snow out during the winter. And he would do this around October 1st. And this particular year, 2001, he was tasked to go up and open the doors and make sure they were secured. And so he got his backpack on and he picked a day in July because the snows are so thick up there. It's sometimes mid-July by the time they open the trails that go way up into this country. And he was good at predicting the best time to go up there. So he's on his way up and he's heading up this trail, and pretty popular trail until it gets to this T in the trail and it goes to Iceberg Lake. Most of the people are going to Iceberg Lake, particularly if the wall doors, ptarmigan wall doors, aren't open. Nobody's going to go that way. So his job was to go open it, and there was still snow up there. He's heading up the trail to the ptarmigan wall, working his way up, very steep. And there's some sections where it kind of levels out and then goes up again. And some of these sections have huckleberries in the brush, like close to the trail. And a lot of times there's bears in the huckleberries, particularly in the fall when they're foraging and getting ready for hibernation. And he remembered tourists would many times report from that particular trail heading up to the wall or even Iceberg Lake that they would say, hey, we saw a bear in the huckleberries, just want to let you know. Hikers like to do that, so it's good to know if there's bears frequenting the area. And sometimes people would get things mixed up because they weren't used to hiking a lot and seeing wildlife, and they would misidentify a moose for a bear, or a bear as a moose, and because they would just see like part of the moose sticking out of the brush, this dark shoulders and this back, and the head is a lot of times down because they're grazing or they're in a pond, they're drinking or whatever they're doing in the pond, their head's down a lot. And in fact, I was in Yellowstone coming off of a peak and then down into the forest in the northeast part of the park. This mountain was called the Thunderer. What a great name. And we saw this look like a bear because we saw this dark shoulders and then this back, and it was very large, and it was above the pine trees, some brush, and with pine trees around it, and it looked like a bear, maybe a bear that was up on a log. There's a lot of down logs in the forest in Yellowstone, and we're like, oh crap, that looks like a grizzly bear right there in the forest, just off the trail, like 30 feet. And then all of a sudden, this big head pops up with these antlers and these ears kind of flopping like this, and we were relieved to see Bullwinkle, the moose, staring at us, and then popped his head back down the graze. So we just saw the upper part of his body, same kind of thing. But on occasion, Stephen, the ranger, would get savvy hikers that are used to the park, and they would see something and they didn't identify it as a bear or a moose. They said it was something else, and they said it was very large, very dark, and it menaced us, stalked us, harassed us, and made sure that we got out of the area. And he always wasn't sure what they'd actually seen, but they were very convincing because they knew the area, they knew the wildlife, and he knew that they knew what they were talking about. But he wasn't exactly sure, and he was thinking, is that maybe Sasquatch? He didn't quite understand what they were talking about, and they didn't always have a perfect view of it. And he always remembered this, and for days later, he always had this kind of concern about what in the heck did they actually see. And he was thinking about that. He continues up this trail, and he notices he doesn't see any bears or any moose or elk or even marmots and birds. Gets out the binoculars, he looks up towards the wall, the ptarmigan wall, and there's snow up there, but sometimes on the darker rocks that don't have snow, and there's a lot of exposed rocks that aren't horizontal, they're vertical, he'll see mountain goats, and he didn't see mountain goats up there. There's just these white dots. And with the binoculars, you zoom in on it, you can see much better. And then he notices, he can see, it looks like some tracks that came down from where the doors are, and it came down, and then it turned and went back up. You could clearly see some tracks in the snow, and there was fresh snow from a couple days before. And he's looking at this and he's thinking, that's really weird because the other side is the Belly River, and it's very remote and primitive back there, and whoever came up had to have come through the tunnel and then came down. He thought it was really odd they would come down and then turn back up and head back towards the wall, because if they came all the way up to the tunnel, they would want to continue down to Many Glacier area and go to the lodge, the hotel, the restaurants, and refresh and get out of the wild for a while. They wouldn't just come up and then go back into the wild. He thought it was really odd. Stephen continued up the trail, and he got to this point where he turned around and he looked back down this valley, U-shaped valley, really spectacular view. The sun was out. You could see Mount Wilbur, iceberg off to his right, Iceberg Lake, and he just had this feeling of elation almost. What a great view. It's one of the perks of being a park ranger. It's my job's to be out here and just to experience nature like this. He turned around, and almost instantly, after he looked up and started hiking, he had this feeling of unease, like this discomforting feeling. Really didn't feel right. And he's looking up towards the doors where the tunnel is, and he pulls out the binoculars. He can see that it's dark. It's open. And he thought, I got to finish the job. I got to make sure it's secured, it's open, it's clear, and I have to do this. But he just had this gut feeling that he shouldn't. He shouldn't continue going forward. He goes a ways up. He's getting closer to the tunnel, and he can see these tracks now, and they're coming into view. And from about 15 feet away, he thought, well, maybe this is a bear. He could see they were kind of oblong shaped, but they looked really large, and he thought maybe it's a bear that had stepped in its own tracks. I mean, it's a 4-footed animal. Its first 2 steps go down, and then the hind feet could sometimes step into the same print and make this enlarged print. And closer examination, he kneels down, he's looking at this, and he can see that this print is one print, 18 inches long, and it looked like somebody was wearing an overshoe, like those old rubber shoes that you pull over your regular shoes with hardly any grip. It's flat bottom, but the toes were sticking out like these giant bare feet that came down, and then they headed up towards the wall. He continued on, and he could see that these tracks went straight for the ptarmigan wall to the right of the entrance to the tunnel, and then they disappeared. He couldn't see him anymore, at least from his angle. And he thought, that's almost like an impossibility, because you can't just climb up over the wall. It's just the kind of rock is just too dangerous to climb on, and the tracks just kind of disappeared. He thought that was really odd. Continues on, and there's more snow now, 3, 4, 5 inches, and he gets to the door, and you can see it's open, but it's not perfectly open wide like he normally does. So he pushed it open, braced them open, each one with a good-sized rock. He looked back, looked around, didn't see any more tracks, and then he went in through this 250-foot long tunnel. And it's kind of closed in, and he didn't like it in there. He could see the light at the other end of the tunnel, literally. And he's going through it, and he's got somewhat of a claustrophobia feeling that he has. Comes out the other side. This is beautiful sunlit. He can see down into the valley, and just this amazing view with, I believe, Helen Lake off to his left. And he's enjoying the view and just thinking about things. And all of a sudden he hears this loud sound, this clanging sound, like the doors slammed shut on the opposite side. And it just echoed through the tunnel and came out. Startled him. And he was shocked, like, who closed the doors? And these doors are very heavy. You don't just slam them and make this clanging sound without being extremely strong, powerful. It really spooked him. He's thinking, okay, so whoever closed these doors, either they're on the other side of the doors or they're in the tunnel. And if they're in the tunnel, they're most likely coming through the tunnel and going to be where he is right now, just any moment. He didn't have a good feeling about this, and this whole experience, he just had this really bad gut feeling, and then seeing the footprints and not seeing any wildlife, and he decided to make himself scarce. And he looked down the trail, and he could see it's just above tree line. There's like nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. He could see a stand of trees way down below, but it was several switchbacks down to get there. And he looks at the trail going to the right, and he can see it just goes straight along the wall. He looks again, and then the trail goes around, and it kind of disappears around this little bit of an edge that pops out. And he thought, maybe if I get down there, I could go around the other side. Maybe I could be less visible until I know what the heck is going on. So he quickly starts running down this trail. He's really feeling his heart and this strangeness of the whole situation. Goes around this slight bend in the trail and then comes around where he can't see the tunnel doors anymore. He's catching his breath. He's got his binoculars that had been flopping on his chest the whole time because he hadn't put them away, and he wasn't expecting to be running. And then he hears some movement over there. It's kind of loud. And then he hears this loud shrieking sound, this screaming sound, this angry screaming sound coming from near the entrance to the tunnel. Totally shocked him. He was really glad he listened to his instincts. And he trusted himself. And he waited and he listened some more and didn't hear anything. And then he had this really horrible thought that whatever this was, and the tracks that he saw on the other side were fresh, so this had to be the same thing. And he thought whatever this was most likely closed the door to trap him. Really freaked him out. And he didn't want to wait around anymore. And he was thinking, there's no way I can go back up to the ptarmigan wall and go through the tunnel to go back down to get back to Many Glacier, where he's from, where his headquarters are. And so he thought, I got to go the long way and go down the trail, then go up over Red Gap Pass. And so he turned and he started running down the trail for all that he was worth. He just did not feel right. There was something completely wrong. And then he's seen the footprints and this angry, horrible scream that echoed through the valley. He worked his way down and he got to this stand of trees that he could see up from where the tunnel was. And he stopped in there and he had a side ache because he was running so hard and he was trying to catch his breath. And he looked back up towards the tunnel. And he didn't see anything. And he's thinking, I'm going to stay in here for a while. I feel kind of safe. I'm out of the area. I'm way down here. And I just got to catch my breath. And then I got a long trek out of here. Fortunately, he had a headlight in his pack with some food and water in it. And he knew the route really well to go up to this Red Gap Pass to get back over to Many Glacier. It was going to take him some time. He was going to have to hike after dark. Was not looking forward to it, but he sure was not going to go back. So he's looking up at the wall again in the tunnel doors. And then he spots some movement. And the movement was not in front of the tunnel doors. It was up above it to the left. And he pulls out his binoculars and he said he regretted looking through the binoculars because it gave him these chills because he could clearly see what was going on. And he saw this very long, white, very long hair on this thing, creature, ape-like creature, scaling this wall with ease. Very long legs, pretty broad shoulders, but it was more slender, and it had this, he could see it turn at one point its head, and it didn't have a snout, but it had this really creepy, almost human-like face. He couldn't see super clearly, but it had a face. You could see the eye sockets. And it scaled this wall really quickly and then just disappeared. In a matter of 8-10 seconds. And before he had time to process it, he's just had this chilling feeling come over him. And he thought, I am literally between a rock and a hard place. I have to go this way in the dark. I can't go that way. But he was happy to go his route to get out of there, this plan B route. He quickly turned and started running again till it got dark, and he could hear things occasionally behind him. He wasn't sure if this thing was pursuing him, if it was just his imagination, but his mind was just kind of running wild, and he was doing this kind of running, jogging, walking really quickly thing, and turned on the headlight, and he knew exactly how to navigate down this trail. And after several hours, he got back to the Many Glacier region and where he was staying. The next day, he didn't go to work, and he had to really process what was happening. And then he was thinking, I have to tell my boss something. Do I tell him what I saw? And he knew he was going to be ridiculed. This is not something that they talk about in the Park Service. And then he talked to a friend, and then she said, you know, they're going to ridicule you. They will not acknowledge this. And he felt this kind of a quandary that he was in because he wanted to warn people about what he knew was up in this drainage, at least this one thing, if not all over the park. But then he thought, if they take that information, don't do anything, he can't warn anybody. So he thought about it, and the next day he decided that honesty was the best policy, and so he went in and he talked to his boss. Told him everything that happened, and the boss seemed to have believed him, but he didn't really acknowledge him. And at the end of the conversation, the boss said, do you want to transfer out, go to another park? And he thought about it, and normally he would, take a day or two to think about it and stuff. And after his experience, he just said, yes, I want to transfer out. And so his boss, supervisor, seasoned, experienced park ranger with more years than he had 15 years, transferred him to Badlands National Park in South Dakota. Completely different kind of environment. And Stephen did not want to go back to Glacier, not after what he'd been through. And he said at his going away, get-together kind of party, his supervisor wrote him in a personalized card, and this is what he said. Stephen, you know that my official stance has to be that what you saw doesn't exist. But you're the third ranger that's left on these grounds since I started working here, and I know you're not all hallucinating. I really don't want to see one myself, but if I ever do, I'll get in touch with you. In the meantime, have a great time at the Badlands. And that's what he said to him. And Stephen was really glad to be out of Glacier National Park, did not want to go back there, and he ended up, after the Badlands, being transferred to Black Canyon in Colorado. And that looks like really great country out there as well. And he said he wanted to stay there until he retired. But he always did not want to go back to Glacier and have any kind of experience like that ever again. And that is our story about a park ranger in Glacier National Park up in Montana, which I used to live up there for 17 years. I love Montana. I have not seen any Bigfoot up there myself, but in the Sierra Nevada, that's a different story for me. So, all right, you guys, I have a little bit of a meal. It's a Mountain House meal, but I'm going to cook that up really quickly here it's going to get dark really fast. And if you guys want to join me for that, let's go have a quick meal over here in the forest. And yeah. Okay, so for tonight's meal, we have from Mountain House the freeze-dried chicken fried rice. That looks pretty good, actually. As well as, this is really interesting. This, check that out. That is a ice cream sandwich. I don't know if it's really ice cream like we think of ice cream, but that's what it says, ice cream sandwich. We'll check what that is. So, all right, let's get this thing going. Oh. Yeah, backcountry meals, backpacker meals are very convenient. I don't know if I'd like to eat these for any extended period of time, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do. So, okay, that is boiling. There we go. That took about 2 minutes on that. All right, well, I think there's enough for 2 servings here, which is going to be more than enough for me. All right, chicken fried rice. It looks like the breakfast skillet, but I think the chicken is, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm really looking at. It's freeze-dried, so it's a little strange, but it will work. All right, we just let that sit, and I got to sit in the darkness here, but what a beautiful forest we have here tonight. Oh my gosh, I love this tree stump too. I like to get one of these in my backyard just to cook on. And these lanterns have been working great, so turn those both up. All right, yeah, about 7, 8, 10 minutes on that. I believe we are ready for this, but before we do that, I think I'm going to show you this ice cream sandwich. Oh, interesting. It's even wrapped like one, but it's dry. It's freeze dried. Oh my gosh. It looks just like an actual ice cream sandwich. See that? This is something they would use like in a commercial where they have to do multiple takes and it will never melt because it's solid like chalk or something. Yeah, but I guess you just break it off. It's more like a cookie. Like a cookie or something. Interesting. And our chicken fried rice is done. Done enough. I don't know if you can see inside here, but that's what it looks like. Chicken fried rice. It actually looks pretty good. I wouldn't mind adding some extra vegetables to this and making it a little bit nicer, but there we go. That's cooked perfectly. I put just enough water. Sometimes too much water doesn't work. Too little water doesn't work. So, all right, I'm gonna eat that. Okay, you guys, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. If you like the strange, unknown, and things that go bump in the night, please do that. And I really appreciate you guys. Appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one. As always, keep hiking.